Halo?
Ya, doktor?
You all nak tengok muka saya ke?
Boleh.
Boleh juga doktor.
Boleh juga, doktor.
Tengok sekali tengok.
Nak berkenalan.
Okay. Saya Dr. Halim Ismail. So, nice meeting all of you. You're all quite familiar with online classes. So, this is not your first time, right? Okay. Probably we won't be able to probably all of you will not be able to introduce yourself, so we just move on to lectures, okay? Boleh ya?
Boleh Prof. Boleh doktor.
Boleh doktor.
Okay, so today's topic is on psychosocial hazard. You can check the UKM folio. Have you opened up your UKM folio and have a look at the notes?
Dah doktor.
Semua tahu guna
Yes,
UKM folio?
Dah.
Okay. So, unfortunately, the internet line in my house is not so great, although I'm using Maxis fiber optic. So, there'll be time when you won't be able to hear my voice, or we might have partial disconnection. Okay. So, as you know that I'm teaching, I'm public health medicine specialist in UKM department. My specialties in occupational safety and health. Okay. By the way, welcome to our program, to all the MPH and SSKM students who are joining us at this time. Although unfortunately, we'll only be able to do online classes. Hopefully, I think for the whole semester, everything is going to be online, right?
Not sure.
Betul doktor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, boleh.
Yes doktor.
Yes, doktor, yes.
Yes, doktor.
Ya.
Because it's quite weird talking to a computer screen, not seeing all of your faces. But I have to look at my slide. Whenever I share the slide, I can't really see your face. So this topic is not so difficult, but basically you'll be learning about stress and what is job stressor, because we're focusing on occupational stress, and then some of the stress management technique. And then after that, I'll probably touch a little bit on stress management and burnout as well. Okay. So these are examples of issues related to mental health, especially now because of COVID. You see, especially among healthcare workers, sort of like there's a lot of frontline workers who is stressed and burnt out, right, at the moment. Especially, any of you decided to volunteer? Hopefully not lah. Ada ke yang pergi volunteer nak pergi kerja Sabah kan? Hello?
Tak boleh nak volunteer pun.
Okay, but do you know anybody who volunteer to go to Sabah?
Ada Prof, ada doktor.
Okay, good for them. Because the situation is quite bad over there, isn't it? But anyway, Selangor is getting worse as well, right? We're seeing 100 cases nowadays Even in UKM, there are a few cases in UKM campus in Bangi. There's not many people who there's nobody tested positive, but there are a few who have close contact with COVID-19 cases. Previously, during the first wave, our hospital is designated as COVID hospital as well. But now, I don't know, they decided to not becoming a COVID-19 hospital. So all cases have been diagnosed in UKM, been sent to hospitals near below. Because we still have our undergraduate students, especially those in the clinical years, year 3, year 4, year 5, they all go into the ward because they need to do their teaching and training because it cannot be done online. Okay? So stress basically is a psychological and physical state that results when the resources of the individual are not sufficient to cope with the demands and pressure of the situation. So stress is more likely in some situations than others, and some individual than others. So basically, although a group of people may experience same situation, but different individual will experience stress differently. Okay, so that's basically what it means. Okay, so stress is also basically a perception. Okay, in your head that you are experiencing stress. But when you are stressed, you exert yourself in some form of psychological and physical state, especially when there's inadequate resources to cope with the stress. Okay. Boleh ke budak-budak SSKM boleh faham kan?
Boleh kita.
So that's basically definition of stress. But for occupational stress, is a physical and emotional response. So the response is physical or can be a form of emotions that occur when the requirement of the job do not match the capabilities, resources, or needs of the employee. So at the moment, say for example, you are in the frontliners, so you're supposed to be taking care of COVID-19 patients, right? And then in terms of resources, that inadequate PPE, for example, or in terms of capabilities, if you are not adequately trained, so that means there is a mismatch between requirement of the job with your capabilities and the resource that you need. And as a result, you can develop occupational stress. Okay. So it's an important occupational health problem, especially now. And as a result of experiencing this occupational stress, it can cause economic loss. Economic loss can be in the form of, say, for example, there's higher incidence of accidents, there's higher incidence of sickness, there's higher incidence of absence when you do not come to work as a result of the physical and emotional response that you got. And sometimes it can reduce your productivity as well. Okay. So overall, all occupations developing occupational stress. And it is quite important to look for that particular specific workplace, what will be their stressor. Stressor we use for factors that causing stress. Okay. Boleh kan? Boleh
Boleh,
semua?
tak?
Boleh Doktor.
Boleh.
Topik senang aja, tak susah pun. So don't get stressed, okay? So the problem of stress can affect the individual and can also affect the workplace or organization. So in terms of individual, it can pose threat to your personal health, your well-being, your quality of life, the way you function, your ability to achieve goal, your self-esteem, your self-confidence, and also your personal development. And in terms of your workplace or organization, you can have increased absenteeism and turnover rate of the workers. Absenteeism di mana orang tak datang kerja, and turnover rate ni orang asyik berhenti masuk kerja. Asyik you new staff. And the problem with new staff meaning that you constrain them. You reduce the quantity and quality of in the organization. It can also reduce job satisfaction and moral. So if you're working in that stressful condition, you're not fully satisfied, and as a result, your moral will be dropped. Okay, and then some would also experience problem with recruitment. Say for example, you are having this workplace, and then it's very difficult for you to get local to fulfill the job vacancies. As a result, we need to hire foreign workers, right? So that especially in the 3D sector. What is 3D sector?
Dirty, difficult,
Dangerous.
dangerous.
Yeah. Kerja-kerja yang macam tu dirty, difficult and dangerous. Bagi examples?
Construction
workers.
Yeah, construction. It's very dangerous, especially if you are building 60 stories high-rise building. Right? Okay. And then poor communication and increased conflict that can also happen. Poor communication can be a problem from stress, but poor communication can also be a stressor. Okay, when the workplace have poor communication, you tend to have increased conflict with each other. Okay, especially among the co-workers. Have they experienced that or not? Konflik dekat tempat kerja ada tak?
Ada.
Adalah kadang-kadang.
Sometimes ada juga.
Biasa lah tu kan. Saya
Orang
panggil
apa kerja.
office politik. Yeah. So what are the signs of stress? Okay, whenever there is a change in people behavior, the acute response to stress can be in the form of their feelings. For example, they become more anxious, easily become depressed, easily irritable, easily become fatigued. Irritable, maknanya senang marah. Cakap sikit je dalam penting, tak tahu sebab apa. Itu tak ada stress itu. And stress can also come in from the workplace, or it also come from outside the workplace as well. Okay. In terms of the behavior, for example, the person starts to become withdrawn, or sometimes they become aggressive or tearful, senang menangis, or become unmotivated. In terms of thinking, for example, difficult to concentrate and unable to solve problems. In terms of physical symptoms, they can have palpitation, nausea, headache, and that's the reasons of their constantly taking MC or EM, and the reasons of absenteeism in the workplace. Okay, so if stress persists, can lead to changes in the neuroendocrine, cardiovascular, autonomic, and immunological function, leading to mental and physical ill health. For example, can end up with anxiety, depression, and also heart disease. Okay. Neuroendocrine tu apa? Banyak doktor kat situ kan. SSKM semua doktor ke? Ada yang bukan doktor ke?
Neuroendocrine could be related to the blood pressure.
Siapa kat situ doktor? Cuba explain what is neuroendocrine. What is endocrine system? Semua tak mengaku doktor dah.
It is an
Malah lah, saya tak
interaction
kenal
between
pun
the
orang.
nervous system and endocrine.
Endocrine system tu kita panggil hormon lah dalam bahasa Melayunya. Kalau orang perempuan tu kan biasa berlaku perubahan hormon. Okay. In terms of autonomic tu, cardiovascular you all know lah. Itu you punya heart and vessels. Cardiovascular, heart and vessels. Jantung dan juga salur darah. And in terms of autonomic, what is this autonomic?
The autonomic with the more to the heart rate.
Your autonomic is your autonomic is your part of your nervous system. It's sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. Because that's when bila you become stressed, you suddenly develop palpitation and so on and so forth. Palpitation is something that you cannot control, so it's all being controlled by your autonomic nervous system. And then you can have neurological function. Okay. So boleh kalau tak faham pun you faham, kau nak faham je lah. Boleh mana yang non-medical. Ada ke yang non-medical? Saya tengok muka sikit apa yang non-medical kat tangan. You ada function raise your hand tu kan? Apa yang non-medical kat situ? Oh, semua tak mengaku je. Okay lah. Okay, what are the signs of stress? What are the signs of stress? Saya kena tanya dan tengok ada respon tak ada respon, just to make sure that you are listening to my like. When there is no response, then it's either you're there or you're not there. Semua ada
Ada Prof.
Ada doktor.
Ada doktor.
Bukan tinggalkan komputer pergi jalan-jalan, pergi kedai mamak dengan test kejap walaupun tengah COVID ni, tak boleh. Sense of stress when there is change in the physical behavior. Oh, dia dah buat tadi. Ini sama jugalah. Sense of stress. And then manifestation of stress can be mild subjective, mild subjective in terms of anxiety, tension, anger, irritable, sama macam tadi, mild behavior, reduce social activity, risk taking. In terms of behavior, reduce social activity tu macam mana? Halo?
Social.
Macam
Kurang berminat
rumah.
Kurang berminat untuk buat social.
Macam apa yang you all kena buat sekarang ni lah. Reduce your social activity. Ni you duduk rumah. Duduk rumah. Kalau ada yang suspected COVID, dia kena quarantine seorang-seorang diri ke dalam bilik kan. Betul? Jadi you apa? Kalau people who are stressed also sometimes they exhibit this kind of behavior. Some would proceed towards risk-taking behavior, and those who is be married, sometimes they end up with mental discord. Okay. Clinical psychiatric disorder. Okay. So basically, psychiatric disorder. Nearly 50% of psychiatric illnesses don't have any specific cause. Okay, but most of those who end up with psychiatric illnesses, the precursor is believed to be stress related. Okay, so in terms of psychiatric disorder, you can have adjustment disorder, somatoform disorder, exacerbation of existing psychiatric disorder, and end up with substance abuse. Okay, these are basically a model that highlight the effects of job decision and latitude, and also job demand. Okay, this model is called job decision control model. They believe that those who are at a high risk would have higher risk of developing stress would be within this these three quadrant. Kalau saya gerakkan mouse, you boleh nampak ke?
Nampak doktor?
Boleh doktor. Boleh doktor, nampak.
Nampak.
So how do you look at this model? So this model is looking at the job demand and also job decision latitude. Job decision latitude is your ability to make decision in your workplace. Okay. Low job decision latitude ni meaning low skill workers and high job decision latitude will be mostly is professional group. Macam doktor semua, you basically be able to make your own decision kan in your workplace. Kalau jadi cashier dekat supermarket, basically it's a low job decision latitude as well. And then in terms of job demand is how bad is your work demand. Macam doktor tu very high job demand. And then you can fall into 4 different quadrants. Can be low job demand and low job decision latitude. This considered as passive. Passive kind of work. Dia tak perlukan, dia punya kerja sempoi je lah. Tak payah nak fikir tu, nak fikir. Job demand pun tak banyak. Jadi kind of work is quite passive lah. And some people, they find it quite stressful as well. Job with high job decision latitude but low job demand can be low strain. Low job decision latitude, high demand, high strain, and high job demand and high job decision latitude is considered as active. So low strain, passive, and high strain will be at higher risk of developing stress based on job decision control model. Okay. So job demand can be coming from time pressure, deadline, excessive workload, and sometimes you can get conflicting demands. For example, sekarang ni dah terasa tak time pressure? Tak ada lagi. Nak siapkan assignment lah. Belum lagi lah kan. Baru minggu berapa? Minggu ketiga. Pejam celik alih-alih dah mid-sem break, and then end of semester exam is approaching. Suddenly proposal semua tak siap lagi kan. That's when you're having and then deadline stress, nak kena submit proposal next week, satu benda tak buat lagi, and then masa tu lah nak siapkan proposal and all the other assignment. So work smart, do everything early, so you don't end up with in this stressful situation. Okay. Conflicting demands ni biasanya macam staff yang ada dua bos lah. Especially macam kalau doktor kat hospital kan ada dua specialist yang you kena menjawab kan. Specialist cakap A, specialist yang lagi satu cakap B. Itu dia pun pening ikut yang mana. Okay. Okay, in terms of stressor, it can come from your job, can come from your family, can come from your financial status, can also come from the environment, and also from your health status. If you're not well, sometimes it can affect your job. So all those can be categorized as your stressor. And then all the stressor, if you do not have a good coping strategies or good health habits, you may end up with psychological, physiological, behavioral problems as a result of stress. Okay. This part, if you're not careful, then you end up with chronic illnesses, or you can have problem in your organization. Sama lah juga macam you all tadi kalau nak kerja deadline semua dia mulalah psychological stress kan. Tiba-tiba je marah your partners kan. Okay. Lepas tu kena kacau sikit tu melenting. So as a result of that lah, sometimes ada yang dapat Psychosocial disease because of stress. So in order for you to have a good coping strategy, you need a very good social support, especially postgraduate students lah. Most of you are married, right? So,
Betul, doktor.
Ya, doktor.
Yes.
Ya, betul.
So you need your spouse to be understanding of what you are going through. Maknanya if your spouse agreed that for you to further your studies, do the masters, do the DRPH or PhD, then they need to provide suitable support lah. Household chores tu separuh tu dia kena take over lah. Kerja macam mana you nak buat assignment kan. Kalau semua kerja rumah you nak kena buat, lepas tu kerja sekolah you nak kena buat, ajar anak you nak kena buat. So there's need to be a lot of give and take in the form of your social support. Kalau tak itu ambil lah man. In terms of your personality, it can also affect your coping strategies. Okay. Yeah, I hope that all of you have some form of social support. Ada tak ada ni? Does your spouse semua menyokong tanpa berbelah bagi untuk sama belajar? Okay. Sebab susah kalau tengah nak buat assignment, lepas tu tiba-tiba kata jomlah pergi rumah parents, rumah kakak, rumah adik, dia orang nak ajak pergi makan-makan dan sebagainya. There's a lot of sacrifice that you have to make in order for you to succeed in your studies. Because all those can be a deterrent for you to be successful in your exam. Okay. So these are the type of stress. You can have eustress, which is the beneficial stress, eustress, stress needed for normal functioning, distress or bad stress, and can cause deleterious effects to you. Okay? Because in order for you to function, you need some form of stress, right? Kalau tak ada a bit of stress nanti tak bergerak pula, semua jadi malah tendas dia. these are example of the stress curve response. This is basically your performance, and then this is your stress level. As your stress level increases, your performance also increases. But until you reach certain level, which is you become fatigued, and then you start to your job performance start to drop because of you become exhaustion. And then eventually you can break down. So apabila kalau you tengok kita punya Menteri Kesihatan, bukan Menteri, kita punya DG Kesihatan, bila present dia kata ramai yang our healthcare workers fatigue kan, and exhaustion. So in terms of dia punya performance is that tu, dia tak ada nak kata dia punya performance dropping lah, cuma you can tell when you are fatigued, your performance start to drop. That's why you need your social support. We don't want you to reach this level. When you become fatigued, then your performance starts to drop. Then mula assignment you tak siap kan. You bukan dia tak buat. You kadang macam stone aja. Tahu nak kena buat assignment, tapi bila tengok komputer tu dia jadi blank. Kepala you tak boleh nak fikir to complete your assignment. And banyak assignment yang is group work, right? So, hello?
Betul.
Betul.
Banyak assignment yang group work kan. You depends on each other to get good marks. And most of the module dia punya continuous assessment is like 40%. So you literally need just another 20% untuk dapat grade B plus B kan, which is 60. To do the assignment properly, because that will help a lot. Okay, burnout is a terminal stage, a set of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that will occur, and it is quite hard to recover. So burnout syndrome can be categorized as a self-perceived in emotional exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion tu dia rasa macam penat, emotionally tired untuk buat sesuatu benda. Lack of professional success of the individual. Dia rasa macam tak ada reason for me to pursue my career any further. And then depersonalization. Depersonalization is basically you detach yourself from your feelings. Kalau you tengok patient tu pun you tak ada rasa empathy. Okay? So emotional exhaustion is an extent to the physical and mental level, and the lack of forces to achieve the day-to-day tasks. Sometimes not only just work, but even day-to-day tasks when you find it to be very tedious to do. In terms of depersonalization, the state in which an individual become more cold, cynical, and always with a negative attitude towards all the people that surrounds, and become very distant to them. Okay? So, you jadi cold lah, you tak ada rasa apa, cold. The lack or reduced professional achievement. It's basically you have negative attitude of an individual and reflect low self-esteem, dissatisfaction, and the feeling of failure in relation to your work. You tak ada rasa nak improve further in terms of your work. Okay, what would be the role of the employer in order to overcome this problem? So as an employer, later on, macam all of you, mana yang dah jadi di IPS, you akan jadi pakar perubatan kesihatan awam, right? And then you're going to be in charge of your PKD, right? You're going to become the first MOH, right? Betul?
Betul.
So when you become your first MOH, you jadi boss, kan? kat PKD tu kan.
Yep.
Ya,
And
betul.
bila dia jadi bos, mana staff yang kat bawah gitu jadi employee. Especially KKM kan, kita dah gunakan sistem decentralization. Kalau decentralization tu macam mana?
Delegation of power.
Delegation of power. Macam daripada KKM dia turunkan kuasa ke kemudian ke bukan PKD. Yang negeri tu apa? Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri. Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri. Dan Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri akan turunkan kuasa kepada PKD, Jabatan Kesihatan Daerah ke, to manage dia punya daerah. Okay? So as an employee, you need to stop blaming the employee with stress. Sometimes you are the source of stressor kan. Bila boss, you tak jaga orang bawah you, so they end up with being stressed. What you can do is find the source of its cause and don't become the stressor. It is for the employer long-term economic interest to prevent stress among employees. Because basically, macam I mentioned just now, can lead to high staff turnover, increase in sickness absence. People will retire early, especially the good staff will retire early, and it's quite a loss to the organization. Increase stress in those staff still at work, reduce work performance, increase rate of accident, and reduce your client satisfaction as well. Because when they are not stressed, they are not happy at work. Whenever they are dealing with the community, and they show they are different colors to the community. As a result, people will start complaining. And then you as the MOH one who's in charge of your PKD will have to face the brunt. So good employment practice. Assess the risk of stress among employees through looking for pressures at work, which could cause high and long-lasting level of stress. You need to be able to decide who might be harmed by this and decide whether you are doing enough to prevent that harm. Okay. So in order for you to be able to do this, right, you need to be able to open line of communication between you as the employer and the employees. Yeah? You need to be a little bit approachable so that the staff can talk to you rather than avoid you. Okay? Kalau semua pernah kerja kat PKD kan, dia punya bos semua baik-baik kan. Betul?
Betul, Doktor?
Betul,
Baik, Doktor.
Ada yang garang, Pak Bos.
Ada yang kata. Ada yang baik.
Are you
Silakan.
ready?
Okay. So you've been working with different kind of bosses. So when you become boss, you decide what kind of boss you're going to become. Right. So through experience, you decide apa yang works, apa yang not works. Because there are some employees you need to be firm and stringent to them, right, in order for them to continuously perform. Some employee you boleh mana yang pandai buat kerja sendiri, you boleh just lepaskan dia untuk buat kerja kan. Tak perlu nak constantly monitor dia punya work. Stressor at the workplace can come from organization, can come from your work tasks, can come from your career development in terms of your role as a worker and also the work environment. Okay. So in terms of organization too, they provide suddenly they increase the KPI of you, KPI, Key Performance Index. So previously it's much more relaxed suddenly because it's a new boss or the new manager. They decided to change the working environment or working culture in the organization and introduce much stringent KPI. So that can be additional stressor to you. In terms of your work task, your boss, somehow because you're well perform staff, bila masalah juga kan, bila boleh buat kerja ni, nanti bos asyik cari you je suruh buat kerja, betul tak? Yeah, as a result, you end up with a number of tasks to do. And in terms of career development, sometimes you kerja kat situ tak ada pathway for you to be a seniority, be a senior or be a boss in that particular organization. But for all of you yang mana medical doctor tu tak ada masalah lah, because I mean if you finish off your master, your DRPH, you can eventually become pakar, right? So you can have some form of career development. But sometimes you also have chronic MO there, right? Tak nak sambung belajar. So result dia become chronic. Tapi even if you are chronic MO, KKM also take note of it, and they still allow you to reach up to level 56 kan? Betul? MO?
Betul.
Kan?
Betul?
You tak boleh dapat
Betul.
jurusan lah kan? Boleh dapat jurusan ke?
Tak boleh.
Tak boleh.
Tak boleh lah.
54 je.
MO
56 kan?
54 saja. Pakar 56.
Oh, 54.
56 pun tak boleh.
56 pun tak boleh. 56
Enam pakar
baru kan? Okay. And then probably there's to separate between pakar and bukan pakar lah. Because chronic MO can go all the way to 54. Tapi you pakar pun you start with 54 kan? And then adalah naik lagi satu tangga 56. So be able to separate you between pakar and bukan pakar. Okay. And then in terms of role of the workers and also the work environment. Work environment tu macam tempat you kerja lah. Aircon rosak, meja tak ada. Especially now kan, kalau most of the BKD is very sempit kan. Sebab dah ramai staff kan, betul tak? Betul tak betul? Hello?
Betul.
Macam tin sardin lah.
Dah macam sardin dah kan. Initially bila dia buat bangunan tu macam besar je. Lepas tu more people graduated and working in the BKD, dah tak ada space dah. Kadang-kadang satu meja tu kongsi sampai 3-4 orang kan, dah tak ada proper station lah. Okay. Kalau nanti bila you all masa buat now you are in PKD kan, previously you are in PKD, bila you kat PKD tu you memang ada tempat you, tapi bila you buat attachment masa you punya DRPH, you akan pergi menumpang kat PKD tu kan. Masa tu you tengok lah, yang menumpang ke sini, menumpang ke sana kan, duduk bilik meeting je. Duduk satu meja 3-4 orang kan. Ada tak dekat you punya PKD tu, budak-budak master, budak-budak DRPH yang datang buat attachment?
Ada.
Dah nampak juga.
Kan, nampak kan macam tu kan. Sedih kan. But nak bawa macam mana sebab dah tak ada space kan. Okay. So organisation stressor tu in terms of your communication difficulty, macam I mention, tak ada communication, political conflict, regulation and policy, delegation of tasks in tak equally being distribute power and decision making authority, when you have more than one supervisor that you have to answer to, lack of participation by workers in decision making. So everything comes from top down. Jadi apa, kita tak boleh nak buat apa. Okay? So in terms of attitude of in charge personnel pun can be quite problematic. That's when you have tough, demanding and autocratic boss. Your boss can be unpredictable. Hari ni baik, hari esok tak baik. There's a lot of uncertainties when you're dealing with your boss. Sometimes you can also have too passive boss yang afraid conflict and controversy. So even though there's problem workers, dia tak nak buat apa, biar je kan. Ada kan kadang-kadang macam tu juga kan. Betul tak kat kerja you tahu benda orang staff tu dengan problem tapi bos dia tak nak buat apa, biar je. Okay. I think we working in KKM is very difficult for you to terminate people kan. Jadi dah tak nak you just apa deal apa, biar je lah dia. As long as it does not disturb anybody, other people to do their work, and then it's fine. Poor social environment and lack of support or help from supervisors and co-workers. Ini pun susah juga lah. Supervisor, boss dia tak nak provide support, supervisor tak nak bantu, and then co-workers jenis tu kerja you buat kerja tak nak tolong. It's very difficult if you are working in that kind of environment, especially kalau you kerja kat PKD. Because you have a lot of program kan? Betul tak? Betul?
Betul.
When you're doing
Betul.
you need a lot of teamwork, right? And then you need a lot of cooperation with each other, right? In order for you to ensure the success of the program, right? Career development, frequent transfer change, is unhealthy competition, no or slow promotion, no growth potential, no insecurity, rapid changes for which workers are unprepared. In terms of job task ni banyaklah semua tu yang tadi saya dah mention sikit kan. But these are the more detailed information. Responsible of other people's safety, health and financial security. This is basically doctors lah giving you job task, quite stressful. Being responsible to other people's safety and health kan. And in terms of financial and other people financial security, ni semua sekali zaman COVID lah. Betul? Macam I have my ex-student, she's a medical doctor, but she's married with pilot. Kan? Dulu pilot mask kan very lucrative salary kan. Kadang boleh dapat sampai 50,000 sebulan. Sekarang kan because of COVID kan. So dia banyak yang dah diberhentikan ataupun dapat suku gaji ke. So in terms of financial security is not there anymore. Jadi can you imagine if you have been living large previously and suddenly your source of income has been cut into 3/4 kan. Jadi inilah banyak benda yang you nak kena fikir, that sort of adjustment that you have to make. Death as symbol of, you all tak ada masalah tu kan? Semua okey kan? Student SSKM semua dah kerja ke belum?
Kerja.
Semua dah kerja? Semua doktor kan? Ada yang bukan doktor juga. And too much or too little responsibilities, your job task, overload quality or quantity of job, no control over your job. You have to do shift work banyak gajian besar. Shift work and stress. And then on call or standby call, heavy workload with infrequent rest break. Macam orang yang kerja dekat frontliner lah, ni semua lah sekarang ni heavy workload. Infrequent rest break because you want to reserve your PPE, right? Do not utilize worker skill. Okay? you dah very skillful worker tapi kerja you tak memerlukan that kind of skill. Jadi, that's what it means by not utilizing your skill. The role of the workers, in terms of your role in the workplace that may contribute to stress. Your role is ambiguous. It's very unclear. Your job scope is unclear. That can contribute to stress as well. So you tak tahu di kerja you nak buat kerja apa sebenarnya. Ini salah, yang tu salah. Bos ni cakap macam ni, bos tu cakap macam ni. So it's by role ambiguity. And then you have role conflict in terms of family and work, especially yang perempuan lah, yang lelaki kurang sikit kot. Family and work punya konflik, betul tak? Tak betul. Orang perempuan. Itu semuanya okey je.
Konflik juga.
Konflik kan. Mungkin kerja dan juga keluarga. Workers versus management, too much responsibility, too many hats to wear. Ni semua female lah ni, too many hats to wear. Kan? Jadi isteri, ibu, lagi doktor, bos. Kalau mana yang kahwin yang suami gaji rendah, you jadi main contributor to your family financial, kan? That's what it means, too many hats to wear. In terms of your work environment, I mentioned that unpleasant or dangerous physical condition, crowding, physical hazard, noise, radiation, vibration. You have chemical hazard in your workplace, solvent, antiseptic, anti-cancer drugs. I still remember when I was a houseman last time. Zaman you all tak ada kot. Zaman-zaman kita orang dulu, masa I jadi houseman tu, bila you nak bagi anti-cancer drug ni, houseman yang kena bancuh dekat ward lah. Masa tu kena bancuh pun tak pakai pun PPE. Tapi staff dari jauh lah dia ajar, okay doktor campur ni. Nanti kita bagi kat patient. Tapi nowadays it's quite different lah. All the anti-cancer drugs been mixed in the pharmacy kan. Lepas tu dia akan hantar ke ward kan. Zaman you all dah lain dah kan. Betul tak?
Pernah pengalaman macam tu. Ada pernah dekat Hospital Melaka buat sendiri.
Oh, ada juga.
Pernah rasa lah sampai dia pernah spillage tu.
Okay. You umur berapa? Sorry tanya umur.
Saya?
Ya.
Saya 33.
33 muda lagi. Masih lagi, teruknya Hospital Melaka.
Semaya, what year? Hospital
Sekarang
Melaka?
dah tak kot. Dulu je. What year? Tak ingat dah. Sebab
You 33, you buat houseman 25 kan? Minta baru 8 years ago kan?
Betul-betul.
Lain lah kalau umur saya dah 47, my husband day is like 26, it's like 20 plus years.
Saya
kan sekarang ni dah okey lah.
2 kali kena spillage.
Dia nurse yang ajar ke, MO yang ajar?
Nurse yang ajar. Sister.
Kan, macam saya cakap lah, dia duduk dari jauh, doktor campur ni kan. Itulah zaman-zaman houseman dulu kan.
Dapat rasalah pengalaman yang tu. Lepas tu je terus ada orang buat bancuh dekat farmasi.
Hopefully benda-benda tak meninggal kekesan pada kita. Kita tak tahu masa tu kan. All this chemical hazard kan. Biological hazard in terms of virus and bacteria kat tempat kerja. This is the worst example lah, COVID-19 tu kan. Economic problems, economic pollution, economic problems macam ni. Itulah dia. What do you think is economic problems? Boleh bagi example?
Kerusi tak selesa kot. Meja rendah.
Exactly lah. Biasanya you cannot make any adjustment lah in your workstation. Bila dah crowded sangat, you letak meja, letak kursi, pakailah benda tu. Yang terbongkok-bongkok lah you guna komputer ke apa ke kan. Tak ada lagi follow any of the economic recommendation in terms of your workstation. Pos ni cantik lah bilik dia kan. Bilik dia seorang ada pintu. Dia bising-bising kat luar, dia tutup pintu, dia tidur. Betul? Non-work related source of stress can become your stressor can also come from outside of your work. Is that can be your family problem. Family problem lah masalahnya. Bila masa first semester masih lagi loving dengan husband, dia di RPH Sam now tu dah nak habis dah, ujung-ujung tu dah mula bertekak sama sendiri kan. Sebab husband pun dah wife pun dah fatigue and experience life crisis, childcare responsibilities ni pun problem juga kan. At the moment it's not so much lah because you're working, you're duduk rumah kan. Tapi mana yang husband and wife working, lepas tu anak tak boleh nak hantar pergi nursery because of COVID kan. Sakit kepala kan, siapa nak jaga. Financial worries, bereavement ni, kalau somebody died lah in your family, husband suddenly dapat COVID ke, meninggal ke, very stressful to your wife kan, or vice versa. Housing problems. Housing problem ni pun masalah juga kan. Mana yang weekend husband, the moment you all tak ada masalah lah kan. Mana yang weekend husband or weekend wife kan, nak kena travel. Kalau dulu, sebab you have to come here kan, kadang ada yang family duduk jauh-jauh. Dia orang duduk KL 5 days, lepas tu weekend dia orang berulang balik lah. That can create problem as well lah. Lepas tu bila duduk sini, mulalah nak cari rumah yang selesa, ada masalah dan sebagainya. Because I don't know lah now, because zaman dulu duduk sewa kat sini 700 je. Sekarang ni dah 1,500. Tak lama lagi 2,000. So in that sense you are quite lucky lah, you all work study kat rumah kan. Kalau tidak, letih juga nak membayar kan, cari 4-5 orang yang boleh duduk satu rumah untuk sharing. Mana yang decide not to bring the whole family here with you, nak cari rumah kat tempat sana nak kena bayar, rumah kat sini nak kena bayar kan. Okay. So in terms of negative effect of stressor, in terms of workers ni sama lah tadi. You can trigger all the way to affect your country lah. Jadi kita pun in terms of stressor kan, PM stress, country nak darurat, betul tak? Macam tu lah lebih kurang ni kan. Sebab Agung kata tak boleh darurat. Itulah. Negative effect of stress, sama lah ni. So you need to initiate preventive activity at workplace to reduce the incidence of stress at workplace. You need to do mental health promotion activities. And then the management must make the environment of the workplace physically and mentally fit to the workers. It's basically the role of the employer. And basically that role falls onto you lah, as the first MOH later on in the future. Okay. Kadang-kadang dia cakap pasal apa, bos, bila dia jadi bos, kadang-kadang bila dia jadi bos dia sebut pasal mental health promotion activity lah, prevention lah, lepas tu you jadi source of stressor ada juga kan. Macam tu lah. Stress risk assessment strategy in terms of first and foremost in terms of what are the best method of you to assess, do a risk assessment in terms of stress level in your workplace. First thing you need to do is hazard identification. Bukan macam high rank lah. Dah belajar high rank ke belum?
Belum Doktor.
Belum.
Belum. Nanti you belajar lah. First, you need to identify if there is hazard present in your workplace organization. So you need to really identify the stressor which exists in relation to your work and working condition for a specific group of employee and make an assessment of the degree of exposure. Okay, the thing about hazard, you're the hazard, you need a form of exposure. Kalau you're not going to be exposed to the hazard, then dia punya your risk assessment tu show that the risk is very low lah. Semua juga macam bila you buat COVID ni kan, bila apa ada contact, meaning there's an exposure, right? Bila ada exposure, then that person need to be quarantine kan? Okay. So hazard identification tu, you identify all the hazard lah. Basically ada berapa banyak hazard lah. Anybody knows? Hello. Ada berapa jenis hazard?
Ada 4 tu.
Bagi contoh.
Health hazard, safety hazard, environment hazard.
You can have physical hazard. You can have biological hazard.
Chemical hazard.
Chemical hazard. Biological dah sebut dah. Biological hazard. You can have agronomic hazard. So you can also have mechanical hazard as well. Okay. So hazard is basically things that can harm you. So things that can harm you can be in the form of physical hazard. Contoh physical hazard, contohnya radiation. Radiation is a form of physical hazard. Noise is in the form of physical hazard. Things that can harm you can come from a biological hazard. Biological hazard can be virus, can be bacteria, can be protozoa. Lagi? Ada apa jenis?
Fungal.
Fungal lagi. So there's many types of biological hazard. In terms of chemical hazard, all those chemical yang ada dekat luar tu kan, different types of chemical can cause hazard to you. You can also have agronomic hazard. Agronomic in the form of ensuring that your workstation fit to that person, rather than that person need to be able to fit to the workstation. Then you can also have, the last one is psychological hazard. Dan inilah stressor. Okay. Then you be able to first you identify hazard, you see how are they being exposed to, then you need to assessment of harm. So basically you need to collect evidence that exposure to such stressor is associated with impaired health in the group being assessed or of the wider organization. They should include a wide range of health-related outcomes, including symptoms of general malaise and specific disorder, and organization and therapeutic behaviors like smoking or drinking, persistence, absence. Okay. So basically, kalau you kata stress, you nak kena check lah juga if there is any telltale signs that there's a lot of people who are stressed in your workplace kan. Tu yang you buat apa? DAS punya survey kan, ada buat DAS kan? Kata KD.
Ada.
Ada.
Ramai ke yang konten kerja sikit-sikit dapat sickness absence ke, ramai yang smoking ke, ramai yang drinking ke. And then you need to be able to identify likely risk factors. And basically you need to explore the association between exposure to the stressor and measures of harm to identify likely risk factor at the group level and to make some estimates of their size and or significance. You need to see the association between the exposure and the stressor. Okay, if you have a stressor but there's no exposure, macam I cakap tadi, then the risk is very minimal. When there is a stressor and there is a exposure, then the risk is very high. Okay, so you have to remember that different group of people have different kind of hazard and the exposure. Contohnya, kalau macam you in charge of PKD, you have foggers, right? Foggers are exposed to different kind of hazards, right? In the line of work. In comparison to you doctors dekat PKD tu, your exposure to hazard is completely different than the foggers. Okay. And then the same thing kalau you are in charge of contact tracing the workers, contact tracing of COVID-19 patient, you're gonna, or you are in charge of doing the screening of COVID-19 patient kan? Tu screening you buat ke? The KK yang buat
Buat ke?
Buat.
Kan? Bila you buat screening, you are exposed to biological hazard. You have to assess dia punya risk kan? And then description of underlying mechanism, understand and describe the possible mechanism by which exposure to the stressor is associated with damage to the health of the assessment group or to the organization. Okay. So basically, bila orang tu stress, then you need to see apa effects dia to the, in terms of health effects ke, how does it affect your organization as well. Lupa lah macam COVID kan, dikatakan you healthcare workers macam ICU kan, nurse ICU tiba-tiba dapat COVID-19, positif COVID-19 kan, so all the nurses in the same ICU semua dia kena quarantine kan, so at the end of the day dia orang tak ada staff nak jaga patient dekat ICU kan. And then because patient in ICU nurse is very macam OT nurse, ICU nurse, dia very specific kan. Different skill kan. Staff nurse kat ward tak boleh nak pergi tiba-tiba masuk ICU, tak tahu dia pun termenung nanti. Nanti kan semua pun mati kan. Dia tengok mesin banyak, dia pun stres Okay. Audit existing management control and employee support system. Identify and assess all existing management system both in relation to the control of stressor and the experience of work stress and in relation to the provision of support for employees experiencing problems. So you need to have, in terms of your workplace, if it's not there in your PKD, probably later on when you become the boss, you provide that kind of facilities apa yang kalau staff you stress, what kind of support that you can be able to provide them kan. Ada tak sekarang ni? As you know lah, for you as a student, dekat UKM Bangi kita ada counselling services. Kau tahu kan? Tahu ke tak tahu?
Ada Prof. Sedin ada betul.
Ada?
Kan? Kita they provide counselling service. If you have financial difficulties, there are also assistance for that. That's what we call a support system to help student in needs. Same thing in your workplace lah. What do you have? For example, kalau macam dekat UKM ni, kalau kita tak ada that kind of support system to our student, nanti kita tak dapat accreditation. Okay? This is required for accreditation as well. On top of it's good for the students. Recommendation on residual risk to take existing management control and employee support system into proper account. Make recommendation on the residual risk assessment with the risk factor towards stress. What can be improved related to the stressor that you identify. Okay? So in terms of stress management, organization strategy, you can assess job satisfaction through interviews and observation using questionnaire or look at the existing document. You can have a job enrichment program where you can have a direct feedback from the employee. Sekarang ni semuanya susah nak buat lah. Dulu kan dia orang buat apa? Team building exercise and so on and so forth. Personal accountability, schedule their own work, improving the quality of work in terms of their work environment, task performed, and also your reward structure. Okay. Berapa banyak bonus dia dapat lah. Macam kita government officer ni memang tak tahu lah. Tahun ni tak ada bonus kot. Betul? Because of COVID sekejap pun dia tak ada duit.
Boleh jadi.
Tak tahu. Saya pun tak tahu sama ada gaji lagi ke tak ada gaji tahun depan. Kita tengoklah apa dia punya pembentangan belanjawan ni. Dia tak betang lagi kan belanjawan tahun ni.
Belum lagi betul.
Itu yang dia nak declare darurat tu kan. Sebab apa, bila when they open up parliament, they have to first thing is bentang belanjawan kan. Okay, in terms of managerial approach, tadi organizational approach, managerial approach is basically you can do a reactive support in terms of listening, reduce confrontation, control your rewards, resolving of interpersonal conflict. Easier said than done, resolve of interpersonal conflict. Kalau you punya dua staff bergaduh, you jadi bos ni sakit kepala kan. Macam mana you nak settle down dia punya konflik kan. Ini tak cakap dengan ni, tak cakap macam ni. Susah nak bagi for them to work together kan. Issues and role conflict, personality clash pun masalah juga. Provide support system, staff support system to the employees in your workplace. Ada siapa yang pernah menjadi person who diffuse the conflict dekat workplace? Ke tak ada? Semua tempat kerja bagus.
Ada doktor.
Pasukan pengaman.
Pasukan pengaman. Kadang-kadang bila you 2-3 orang kan doktor, kadang-kadang ada staff perempuan yang datang jumpa you cakap dia been sexually harassed, boleh punya second boss kan. All those things is very conflict kan. And these are the things that you need to handle about macam mana kan. Can also have a organizational development program to be able to increase level support and trust among individuals, increase open confrontation, open and genuine and interpersonal communication, increase personal enthusiasm and self-control, and you can also provide positive enforcement in terms of money, positive work environment, and in terms of promotion. In terms of stress management for individual strategy, that tadi organization strategy, that is your individual strategy. What you can do self-monitoring lah. That's quite important for you to make sure you monitor yourself as well throughout the whole semester. Jangan tiba-tiba je nak exam end of semester exam tiba-tiba dapat schizophrenia pula kan, atau manic depressive disorder kan? Tak mahu lah macam tu kan. Boleh?
Banyak
Boleh tak
pola.
boleh ni? So you monitor yourself. Jangan jadi if you are too stressed, then you need to find a method that work for you to distress. Tapi kalau you stress because nak kerja deadline, tak siap assignment, tak siap proposal, and your coping mechanism is basically I copy paste je lah. Itu tak boleh. Itu plagiarism Jadi bila plagiarism kan tiba-tiba dapat fail pula, susah pula nanti. Pening lah kita orang pula ni. Macam mana nak melayan you yang duk plagiarize je Try to avoid that as well. Other than plagiarize, make sure you paraphrase the sentence. Or if you want to copy bulat-bulat, ada cara dia. Buka buku gaya UKM tu. Dia ada cara for you to take the whole passage, paragraph. This one is being quoted in this thing. Ada cara dia. Dalam buku gaya UKM kalau you nak buat macam tu. Bila you nak buat assignment or your proposal. Coping strategies, manage self-talk. You can also utter irrational belief, take it less seriously, take the threat into opportunity, be okay no matter what. Boleh ke you be okay no matter what? Manage action, you need to be more assertive. Control your physical stress response. You can use breathing methods, use muscle relaxation, mental method, use active listening. Basically, what works is basically mana yang Muslim, going back to your religion, it helps a lot. Semayang, doa. But it also work for non-Muslim as well. Bila kita buat kajian, either Muslim or non-Muslim, they all say that going back to the religion as a method of coping is quite good as well. Make sure you have maintain healthy buffers. Do exercise, eat nutritious sleep, and sleep. Bila you buat assignment and proposal awal, tak adalah you buat last minute, tak adalah malam tu tak boleh tidur, sebabkan siapkan you punya assignment dan juga you punya proposal. Okay. Utilize available coping resources in terms of your social support, money, belief, and faith. Avoid maladaptive reaction to stress by taking alcohol, drinking more. Jangan pula yang Muslim tiba-tiba start taking alcohol, non-Muslim suddenly you increase your amount of alcohol that you take. So if you want to drink moderately kan. There are studies have shown that moderate alcohol consumption is good for your health anyway. Betul tak? Ada yang non-Muslim kan? Betul? Ada.
Ya, betul.
You all drink ke tak drink? Ada yang you all
Yang drink, saya tak drink.
Ada yang tak drink kan? Drug abuse, jangan ambil drug. Smoking, overeating. Overeating senang cakap. Especially now you kat rumah kan, dengan buat assignment tu memang mengunyah je mulut kan. Okay. Sambil dengar lecture mengunyah mulut kan. Tadi pun ada dengar tadi suara tengah makan-makan. Blaming others. Okay. Gonna touch a little bit on workplace violence. Boleh bertahan lagi ke ni?
Boleh.
Semua hidup lagi ke?
Boleh.
Pengsan dah.
Boleh.
Okay, workplace violence is an act or threat of physical violence, harassment, intimidation, or threatening or other threatening, disruptive behavior that occurs at the work site. It ranges from threats and verbal abuse to physically assault and even homicide. It can affect and involve employees, clients, customers, and visitors. Okay. You pernah experience any of this? Threat, physical violence, harassment, intimidation, threatening. Ada yang pernah experience that? Verbal abuse ke?
Pernah tengok je Prof. Doktor.
Tak pernah experience ni.
Benda biasa.
Verbal abuse biasa. Dah tak jadi, tak anggap sebagai violence. Husband sekarang pun most of them are complaining that they're verbally abused in the workplace. Ada yang baru-baru drag ke? You all yang baru jadi dalam batch ni. Ada? Tak ada?
Tak ada kata.
Tahu lah macam zaman saya houseman dulu, macam satu houseman jaga satu ward, satu ataupun dua houseman jaga satu ward. Yang baru-baru ni dengan sistem macam satu patient satu houseman lah. Something like that lah. Betul tak tahu lah, sebab saya dah lama tak kerja kat hospital. All yang just newly came from the system. Betul ke tak betul?
Satu cubicle, satu asma tu ada lagi lah.
Satu houseman.
Mewah satu patient, satu asma.
Kadang-kadang dia punya rotation macam tu kan, dia tak bagi betul-betul kan. Tiba-tiba semua last posting ONG. Jadi dah satu patient, satu houseman. So in terms of risk factor for workplace violence, especially if your work involves exchanging money with the public, dia bila melibatkan wang kan, kadang-kadang sama juga. If you decide to open 24 hours clinic kan, bila you pergi clinic 24 hours kat KL tu ramai juga yang enhance their security or decided not to proceed with 24 hours clinic because selalu kena rompak je kan. They came in disguised as a patient and then bila dia masuk dia merompak pula. Working with volatile, unstable people, working alone or in isolated area, providing services and care, especially kalau dekat nursing home ke. This thing can happen kan, bila nurses lah yang provide this and care ni, bila anak datang tak puas hati sikit-sikit viral kan, masuk dalam Facebook lah, masuk dalam Twitter lah dan sebagainya kan. Working with alcohol is working late at night or in area with high crime rate. Kat Malaysia ada ke area with high crime rate? Ada?
Macam tak ada lah.
Saya pun tak tahu.
Area foreigner banyak kot.
Contohnya macam Chowkit lah. Saya dah lama tak masuk Chowkit lah. Sebab Chowkit tu dah jadi macam apa? Kawasan apa? Foreigners terus ya. Memang dah tak ada local kat situ Chowkit. Tapi masa COVID ni saya tak tahu dah, tak pernah lagi lah, tak pergi. Among those with higher risk are workers who exchange money with the public, delivery drivers, healthcare professionals, public service workers, customer service agent, law enforcement personnel, and those who work or in a small group at risk of violence. Dah lah you apa involved in, dah lah you kerja seorang atau kerja you apa kutip duit. Memanglah bahaya. Workers at risk among those with high risk are workers who exchange money with the public. Ni kita sebut tadi lah. Reducing workplace violence, what will be the employer role? Establish a zero tolerance policy towards workplace violence. This policy should cover all workers, patients, clients, visitors, contractors, or anyone else who may come in contact with the company personnel. Dekat hospital kita pun biasanya ada benda-benda macam ni kan. Ada kan, biasa dia orang buat apa, kempen kan. Respectful tu, healthcare workers kan. Dekat PKD ada buat ke benda-benda macam ni? PKD tak ada buat. Jarang orang masuk orang marah dekat PKD kot. Agaknya.
Ada juga Doktor.
Ada juga.
Tapi yang first kali kena marah security lah kan.
Yang kena marah selalu front desk.
Front desk.
Receptionist.
Receptionist. Itu ada. Ada lah apa benda yang dia orang biasanya tak puas hati tu.
Kena compound Doktor. Compound either from yang food compound ataupun yang denggi punya compound ataupun yang rokok punya compound.
Okay. Normal lah tu kan. Siapa yang tak marah kalau kena apa? Kena denda kan. Conduct risk assessment at website to identify methods for reducing the likelihood of workplace violence incidents from occurring. Then we plan workplace violence prevention program combined with engineering contract and music contract. The thing is because of front desk so dia tak ada proper partition kan between you and the visitors kan. Ada tak? Dekat KKM ni very open kan. Dekat PKD very open kan.
Open je Doktor.
Jadi kalau apa dia marah kat depan tu semua orang kat dalam bilik office boleh dengar kan.
Satu PKD dengar sebab PKD kecil
Itulah dia. Develop workplace violence prevention program or incorporated into a safety and health program, employee handbook or manual of standard SOP. It is critical to ensure that all workers know and understand that all things and some of you might become pengarah hospital juga. So bila pengarah hospital tu banyak sektor dan banyak area. Oh dah habis dah? Itu je lah. Saya dah. Okay. Okay. Any questions? Tanya soalan ni. Halo, ada apa-apa soalan? Semua ada lagi ke dah tidur semua?
Ada Doktor.
Ada tak? Ada.
Ada Prof.
Ada.
Nampak kat belakang tu tulis University Kuasa Malaysia.
Nampak.
Dia punya background.
Nampak.
Background. Bunyilah pening kepala saya macam mana lah nak masukkan benda ni. Kita bukan IT savvy kan. Biasanya kita ajar dalam kelas tiba-tiba kena Microsoft Team lah, apa benda lah. Benda UKM folio. Okay. Kalau tak ada apa-apa soalan, kita end today.
Okay.